It's voice training. It's time for voice training. Voice training. Train your voice so you like it. It's voice training. Welcome to voice training. It is me, your teacher, Bria. I hope you've been practicing this week, and if you haven't, that's okay. You'll get it next time. I know it's tough. But it's important to keep on practicing, and that's why it's important to tune in every week, to follow along. Give yourself some structure. And in the spirit of giving some structure to this process, I want to try to implement some more themes to our lessons. So this week's theme is all about breath control. If you followed my training thus far, you know that diaphragmatic breathing is very important to my voice method, my philosophy of speaking. And I actually believe breath control and diaphragmatic breathing is extremely important to all aspects of life. If you want to succeed at something, martial arts, sports, dancing, singing, regular arts, and of course, speaking. It comes from the breath. Breathing with your diaphragm helps you stay relaxed and centered and focused, and whatever it is you're wanting to do, that is what you will be focused upon. So today we're going to learn about how to control our breath as well as how to implement it into our speech, especially the breathy voice, which if you followed my training so far, and if you haven't, at some point you should go back and look at previous lessons as to use in your training. But if you followed it so far, you know we've been working with two voices, the breathy voice and the pinchy voice. And today we will do a little bit of both, but we're going to focus a little more on breathy voice because in my experience, breathy voice is far more difficult for most people. It requires a lot more technique and it requires a lot more practice and control over one's relaxation in here. It's easy to be tight. It's easy to be strong, which is what the pinchy voice requires of us. But the breathy voice requires us to be very relaxed and soft and gentle. And learning to relax up here can be difficult. So to start, we're going to do this diaphragmatic breathing. And if you're familiar, you will know that we're using our stomach muscles to breathe. Not up here. We're not tight in the chest. We're not breathing like, we don't feel like the air is shallow and high up here, like if you're anxious or hyperventilating. We want to have a sinking feeling. Our lungs, of course, are filling with air. That's literally how lungs and breathing works. But we want to control that action using the stomach muscles, the diaphragm. It's inside, as you can see in this little diagram here. As we breathe in through our nose, the stomach expands out. As I breathe out, I push the air by compressing my stomach inwards, pushing it out like a bellows. Breathing in. Do you feel that? Do you feel nice and relaxed in your chest? Breathe along with me and see if you can feel. Push the air out with your mouth. Feel like you're blowing out a birthday candle. Put your hand up. When you breathe out, I want you to see if you can feel the air hitting your hand. Do you feel lots of air hit your hand? Try again. See if you can blow your hand away. Well, couldn't quite move my hand, but I felt it. And it felt moist, felt warm. These are the things we want. Try one more like this. Really blowing. And as I blew, I squeezed my stomach in. Really tight. You can see my whole body almost contract a bit. That's an exaggeration. We still want to stay very back straight, shoulders relaxed and upright, but the stomach is constricting in. Let's just do one more like that. This projecting the breath out. Not only helps with breathy voice, but it also helps with projecting your voice, which is going to make it easier for you to speak at a volume and a pitch that you want to be speaking at. The more air you're moving, the easier it is to go higher pitch. As you get better at going higher pitched, you don't need to move as much air. But I remember in the beginning of my voice training, I needed to really be moving a lot of air and frankly speaking pretty loud in order to get high pitched. Which, again, we don't necessarily want at a certain point, but it's easier to go up there and then dial it back down than it is to try and stay meek and mild and conservative all the way through. So, next, let's go return to something I'd done previously, which is timing our breath. We're going to breathe in. I'll pull up a little graphic. It's going to be breathing in for 4 seconds, holding that breath for 4 seconds, and then exhaling for 4 seconds. This is that breath control. It's not just about the forcefulness of blowing out air. It's about being able to draw your breath out for longer and longer. And this will give you control over your breath as you speak, doling out the amount of air you wish to utilize in your speech. So, prepare yourself, get nice and relaxed, and we'll start breathing together when this icon pops up. 2, 1. Let's go again. You can hold for a moment, then let's do one more. I lied, I want to do one more. Prepare yourself. Good stuff. Hopefully that didn't make you too lightheaded or feel like you were hyperventilating at all. Give yourself a little sip of water just in case. And you can practice holding your breath for longer and longer periods of time. We've got 4 seconds on that timer. You can increase it to 5 seconds in your own head. You know, it helps to have the visual representation there, but get a sense of your own sense of timing. And then as you go throughout your day-to-day activities, focus on controlling your breath, staying relaxed, breathing in and out, basically at the amount you are dictating. It's not, oh, that's just how I breathe and I can only breathe in for a second. No. I'm in charge of my breathing, and I can breathe in for 4 seconds or 5 seconds or as many seconds as I'm capable of. My personal best is 60 seconds in, 60 seconds out, not a 60-second hold. That would be nuts. I don't think any voice practice has people holding their breath for that long. But the hold is just there to kind of help you stay centered in your breath and relaxed in it. So as you increase your time, make sure you include a little bit of a hold, but don't feel like you need to make your hold equal to the increased time that you give. Breathing, of course, is something you can practice when nobody else, or when there's people around and you don't feel like you can make noise. You know, we can't be doing goofy voice practice stuff. If our coworkers are right there, we might feel a little weird doing that. But we can practice our breathing, and that won't disturb anybody and it won't make us feel embarrassed, hopefully. Next up, a very common exercise I do in the spirit of voice training and breath control is yawning. And in the spirit of pushing out lots of air, I want you to have your hand up for today's yawns. And I want you to feel that air as you go. And I want you to push with your stomach muscles as you make a bit of a sound. Oh, I felt such warm air on my hand. I'll do one more. Give you a little space to do one too. Feel that air on your hands. Your turn. Really push that air out. One more. Now there I was going a little bit high pitched. That's because I'm challenging myself. You do not have to go high pitched. If you're having to go, ah, well, if you go, ah, I'm not feeling any air in my hand when I do that because that's the falsetto. You're not exactly helping yourself there in terms of training. We want to move that air, that but with a bit of sound. Even if you're going fairly low, that's good. You're making sound while moving air. That's the first step. Let's try, though, if you were going, say, let's try one step higher. You can go, try that. Was that, do you feel like you were still able to move air even though you were trying one higher on a note? Let's try maybe one higher. Just move that air. Focus on breathing first and foremost. Focus on the air. Don't worry if you're not getting as much air as you did on lower notes. Oh, I'm still feeling that air because I'm pushing. It's okay if you're not getting as much air as you did at the beginning. Let's just do one more high one. It's all about pushing yourself. As long as you're aware whether or not you're getting as much air, that's okay because you're pushing it. Let's go back to doing a lower one. Do you feel a difference? Do you feel the difference in the amount of air if you're going higher versus going lower? Focus on that. As you move forward with your training, be aware of these things. Give yourself a little bit of water. Now what we're going to do, let's try drawing this out a little bit. We use our little handy breath timer as a tool to focus on. And what we're going to do is we're going to try and yawn out for that sustained 4 seconds. Don't feel like you have to hold or anything like that on the 4 seconds. We're just going to use the 4 seconds to do a sustained like so. Maybe I'll breathe in here. I'll give you another. It's a little harder to do things for a sustained amount of time. It strengthens you. It trains your stamina. So I'll give you a chance here. Your turn. Ready? You're going to try yawning out for the 4 seconds here on this graphic. It says breathe in. Try breathing out. Give yourself a little rest on this hold, and then on the next one, let's give ourselves a little rest here, and I'll go with you. Little rest. Couple breaths in. Let's do one more. Last one. Good stuff, good stuff. Have a little water just in case you're a little lightheaded. Breathe in and out just normally. Just relax. Shoulders loose. Let's go to uptick yawns. Uptick yawns are very similar to what we were doing, but as we kind of settled into that breath, that on a regular yawn, what we're going to do is we're going to try and go up in pitch as we yawn while still maintaining that breath. Don't worry, just like when we went up in pitch on our yawns, don't worry if you're not getting as much air as you go up. That is normal. But the goal is to try to sustain as much air as possible as you go up. So we're going to go like this. Do you hear how I was kind of subtly going up in pitch while still keeping this feeling? That's what we want to have here with that. So I'll give you another example, then I'll give you a shot. So. Why don't you try? Try going up in pitch as you yawn out. And as you finish, have a little water. I'll give you another example. Do you hear at the top there? A little tighter, a little more strained. I was probably losing a little bit of my breath. That's okay. Why don't you go? See if you can hold on to that breath as much as possible as you go higher in pitch. Good. Maybe have a little water. I'll go again for you. There. I was maintaining my breath, but I was losing the sound a little bit. That's often the trade-off we have to make. Either you're maintaining a nice high sound, or you're losing your breath, or you're maintaining your breath and you're losing your sound. Either's okay. It's a little bit of a compromise when we're challenging ourselves, and the goal is to be able to, as much as possible, hold on to either element as you go higher. So why don't you go... Don't sweat it if you lost a bit of air. Have a little bit of water. Couple breaths in and out. Let's go to some non-voiced exercises. We would have done this in the very first lesson I did with y'all on YouTube. You can check that out if you haven't seen it. But what we're going to do is not try and make a sound. We're going to almost be whispering. We're going to be just pushing that air in the shape of a sound without directly trying to speak. You see how I'm speaking here, I'm making sound, but if I'm whispering, it sounds very different, right? This is more in common with a whisper than it does with true speech. But think of it first and foremost as breathing, pushing air out, as I said, in the shape of a sound. We'll start with an ah sound because that's the simplest, and we're just going to have our hand up so we can feel that air on it, and we're going to be going like so. I wasn't going ha. You know, I'm not trying to say it. I'm just going more like breathing than speaking. Why don't you try one? Feel that air on your hand while you're making an ah sound. Feel okay? I'll give you another example. Why don't you try one? I'll go again. Oh, lots of warm air. Really push. Push that air out. I'll give you one more. I'm going to push as much air as I can here. Why don't you try? Good. Do you feel it in your stomach? It should almost feel like a little bit of a stomach workout. You're using those muscles, squeezing them. Give yourself a little water. Let's go to our next sound. It's going to be he, but we're not saying it. We're not going he. We're going I got this fur thing here. I know I'm a piece of crap. I got a real piece of fur. Doesn't matter. It's a piece of fur and I saw it move. Like you're blowing air onto hair. It moved with the air. And it's like a couple feet away from me here. My computer's sitting on it. I didn't see as much air hit there. I probably missed it. I'm going to try one more. Ah, that was pretty strong. Why don't you try it? Feel that air. You can go. I'll go. Oh, I saw the fur move there. Why don't you try one? Last one. And you can go. It's interesting, on the ones where I just sat and I was relaxed and I wasn't necessarily trying to make the fur move and I just put my heart into it, put your weight on it, as Rudy Ray Moore would say, I saw that fur move. Give yourself a little water. We're going to do next sound. It's going to be high, but we're not going high. We're going high. Maybe have our hands up for this. Feel the air on it. Squeeze at that stomach. I really want to focus today on pushing that air. That's going to come into being really handy for speaking with that breathy voice. Why don't you try? Good. I'll give you another pure example here. And you can go. Last one. Your turn. Yeah. Have a little water. Let's do one more sound. We're going to do ho or how. My voice teacher taught me how. I don't know, I think I feel like transitioning over to being more directly related to the voice training we'll do later, which is the vowel sound O. So let's go. Give it that bit of H. As, was it Crazy Yakov or whatever it was in The Simpsons? Pulled it in H. Give it a bit of H. It's going to increase the breathiness of this. So we're going. You too. You try it. I'll go. You can go. And remember, with all of these, really squeeze with your stomach. Really push the air out. Don't feel like anything else up here is working too much. Your stomach is what's pushing the air out. I'll give you an example. You try squeezing that air out. One more. You can go. Good stuff. Have a little bit of water. Now, it might not seem directly related to voice control or breath control and the breathy voice, but we're going to move into some pinchy stuff for a moment because we want to bring it back to doing more breathy stuff. So what we're going to do is an exercise you may be familiar with if you've worked with me before, and that is called creaky door. We're going to be making this kind of creaking sound. This is called vocal fry. We're going to be putting that into our voice a little later in training. But for now, let's just start with, at the bottom of the throat, a bit of tightness. Before we're working with looseness, now let's move into tightness. Tightness in the throat, just exhaling like we were, using your diaphragm, but now tighten up the bottom of your throat so you can give it this kind of croaking, popping feeling, this all I'm doing there is I'm just going like we were with that breath control, the diaphragmatic breathing, but with this tightness in here, so it gives it the pop. As a result, if I was to have my hand up, I wouldn't be feeling that breathiness on it. That's okay. It's about giving tightness to our breath as we push it out with our diaphragm. Try one more here. I'll go, and then I'll give you an example, or I'll give you a chance to do it on your own. Why don't you try? See if you can make it pop without me interrupting you. Yeah. What I'm going to do now is let's go back to that timer, and we're going to see if we can draw this out. And we'll see if we can draw it out first just for 4 seconds, and then we'll give ourselves a break. And then we're going to go for 8 seconds. So this timer, it's got 4 sets of 4s on it, right? First set, 4 seconds doing the sound, the Next set, we're giving ourselves a 4-second rest. And then for the final 8 seconds, we're going to try and go the whole time. Make sense? Follow along with me. So, when I pull it up, start croaking. Ready? Okay, got that. Hold. Now the real thing. Give yourself a 4-second rest. And now there's going to be 3 cycles of 4. Let's do it the whole time. Good. Good. Feel okay on your throat? It's not too hard, not hurting. not too tight. It's okay if it's a little tight. It's okay if it's a little raspy. That's normal. But I don't want you to hurt yourself here either. Let's do one more. We're going to hold it for the full 12 seconds of that cycle, all 4 of it. So the breathing in, holding, breathing out, holding. Okay? We can do that, right? Or actually, no, that would be 16 seconds. We're going to do it for 12 first. So that's the first 3. Breathing in, holding, and then breathing out. That's going to be our thing here. And then we'll take a little rest, and then we'll do all 4 cycles. So, ready? Good. Good. That was pretty easy, right? Let's just do a couple breaths just to make sure everyone's okay. In a couple seconds, let's try all 4 cycles, 16 seconds of croaking. This should be fairly easy, especially if you have okay breath control, but we won't be using up our breath to the same degree we would if we were going full breathing that full 12 or 16 seconds. Ready? Okay, so when you see that graphic pop up, start croaking. Easy, right? It's not too hard to hold that one. It's easy to develop the tightness and clenching ability, which is another aspect of control that we're looking for. Now, let's turn this into something we can relate to this breath control stuff we've been doing. We'll go through now the full creaky door, which is starting with that tightness in the bottom of the throat and bringing it up more into the nose and the face, which is the secret to a lot of voice stuff that I teach, is containing one's voice up in the face. So we go from like here into here like so. Yeah, it gets a little, it's still creaky, it's still tight, but it changes its character because I'm kind of moving my focus up into more the head and the nose. Here, I'll give you one more example, and then we'll go back and forth. Why don't you try? And remember, it's not about going higher pitched, it's about going physically higher in your head and your body, feeling that tightness travel up. I'll give you another example that you can go. Feel it move up. So at the top of that, when I'm in the that's nasal stuff. And we'll get into that. That's a more advanced technique. But work towards this feeling of going from what I call the creak to the squeak. Creaky's down here, that and the squeaky's up here with the and if you can go then you're pretty set. But the next step with this is to be able to go up and then back down again. We're going That's also another form of control, yeah? We're holding on to this tension we're creating and then bringing it back down with us. So I'll give you another example, and then I'll give you a chance to do it on your own. Why don't you try? I'll go again. You can linger on the end there if you want. Try it out. Yeah? I'll give you one more here. Let me try. Don't sweat it if you can't get up into that. It'll come. Even if you're just going, that's good. That's training this tightness in here. So, how does this very opposite of what we've been doing this whole time stuff relate to breath control? Well, if, in my opinion, if you only do one exercise, it is what I call the breathy creaky door. That is where we're going up from the creak to the squeak like we did. But when we come back down, we're not releasing or going from creak into tightness. We're releasing the tightness into breathiness. It's very difficult to go from tightness to relaxedness. It's much easier to go from relaxedness to tightness. Most people are naturally tight, and it's much harder to relax from that. So what we're learning to do is to be able to go into this tight, squeaky, creaky place and release it into looseness and breathy stuff. So we're combining the creaky door basically with a yawn. You know how we settled into our yawns? Same principle. We're going, This one's not easy. It'll take some time to master it. That's okay. I'm going to give you another example and then I want you to try it. So remember, going from the tight in here, up into the squeak in here, and then when you come back down, release into kind of a yawn. And this is all being powered by your diaphragmatic breathing. Use the stomach muscles. They never really release in many ways. They're part of the tightness in the throat, and they're pushing the air out as you relax this stuff up here. The diaphragm is always engaged, even as we stay relaxed up here for breathy things. So we're going, Why don't you try it? I'll give you an example again. Let's do one more of these. Your turn. Easy, right? Well, it's okay if it's not so easy. But hopefully you have some understanding of the basic principle of having this tightness and then releasing the tightness. All of this voice stuff that I teach is all about this interplay of tightness and softness, being able to shift between them at will. If you listen to me speak here, I'm combining this pinchy voice with this breathy voice and kind of switching between them and combining them in places. And that's how I'm able to get, like, at times this softer flair to my voice. Sometimes I give it this little tighter aspect, depending on how I'm feeling or what my mood is. If I'm wanting to be assertive and tight, I finish more with this tight, intense, pinchy aspect to my voice. Oh no, if I'm trying to make somebody feel at ease or just be gentle and soft, then I'll give it a little bit more of a breathiness at the end of my voice. And so when we train our voices, it's about learning that control to be able to shift between whatever it is we want. Make our voice do whatever we want it to do at that point in time. That's the purpose of all this. So, let's move on. We're going to stick with this theme of breath control. Let's go into some more breathy related stuff. Let's just go to a breathy vowel sound. We'll go with the ah sound. And like I said, we want to put it in H. So we want to give it a ha. Again, we're not just going ha, or no, ha. We are going more ha. That is different from the exercise we did at the beginning, the non-voiced ha. Do you hear that difference? Ha versus ha. One is more like just pure breath. We're just breathing out a sound, but without actually trying to speak the sound. And the other is speaking the sound, but trying to make it more like we're breathing. That makes sense? Let's combine them in what I call back-to-back training, where we do one thing back-to-back with another thing. Something that's easy, like, say, breathing something out, compared to something that maybe some of us have more difficulty with, such as making a breathy note. So we will go... Do you hear the distinction there? Now I'm doing this hand stuff so you know what's up. I want you to have your hand up as you do it. So you can go, and hopefully you're still feeling lots of air on your hand as you go. So why don't you try it? Try going back to back, non-voiced with voiced. Ready? Unvoiced, voiced, with that hand up. I'll go again. Why you go? Non-voiced. Take a rest. Voiced. You feeling lots of air in your hand? I hope so. Let's do one more together. I'll go first. Have a little water. And don't sweat it if you're not getting these right off the bat. You can always return to this after I've posted in video form and use it as a structure for your own voice training. You're only going to get this if you practice it regularly. So ideally, maybe practice some of these exercises a little bit every day until next Thursday. That could be a really good idea for you to follow. You can implement them with other things you're already practicing, perhaps things you saw in previous lessons. But always keep practicing. My goal here is to provide you a framework to develop your skills. Let's move on with this concept of this breathy note, but let's challenge it a little bit. We were holding things for a longer period of time. Let's try that here. So let's go to our timer graphic that I had for the breathing, and we're going to hold this breathy note for a sustained period of time. Let's try it for 4 seconds to start. So when you see the graphic pop up, follow with me and do a breathy note. Here, I'll give you a little example to start. So I'm going to follow this graphic. Oh, it's surprisingly difficult if you're not prepared to hold that breathy note for 4 full seconds. You want to try that? Why don't you go? And then when you see that graphic start up, you start going with your hand up. Ready? Follow it. Whew, take a little rest. Let's try it on the next one. Oh, I kind of ran out of air there. I didn't pace myself well enough. Let's hold it on this breathe in, and then on the hold, we'll go together. Do you feel your air running out by the end of that 4 seconds? Let's breathe in on this hold, and then we're going to go. Good, good. Have a little water. Hey. Just breathe in and out. Relax a little bit. Did it feel more difficult to hold it for a slightly longer period of time? Did it feel like 4 seconds was slightly too long for you? Get a feel for that in your own training. If you think 4 seconds is too difficult in your own practice, just hold it for 3 seconds. That's fine. Is 4 seconds really super easy for you? Why not try 5? Try holding it for longer and longer. You can challenge yourself whatever amount is appropriate for you and your current abilities. Just be aware of how it feels to be making these sounds and adjust accordingly. Simple, right? Listen to yourself. Listen to your own natural rhythms and abilities and needs. This is something I'm trying to teach myself, and it's difficult, especially I think a lot of trans women, we're go-getters. We push ourselves. And yeah, that's good, but also be aware of what your needs are too within practice. Yeah? I know that's something I struggle with and I need to remind myself of all the time. Let's try challenging this in another way. Let's try seeing if we can sustain this breathiness while increasing the pitch. We did that a little bit at the beginning with the yawning. Let's try it with this pure breathy note. This remember, the goal is to have air hitting your hand while still making sound. We want to make it very controlled and focused, which is one thing holding it for longer periods of time can help with. We don't want it to have an arc to it, like a that gets weakening. It will run out of air somewhat as we hold it for longer and longer. But notice how mine here is very sustained. It's all very flat. You want to keep that for now. But we want to hold on to that while we increase the pitch, because as we increase the pitch, we naturally tighten up and we can often lose that breathiness. So let's just try one. Let's just do one at the same level we were just doing it, and then we're going to go up from there. So I'll do one, then you do one. Let's start at one that's just normal, the baseline, easy note. Not that one. That one. You can go. Good. I'm going to go one higher. You go one higher. I'll go one higher. You go one higher. You can go. It's normal if you're feeling less air. That's okay. I'll go one higher. Still got air. If you got air, keep pushing. Let's go one higher. Oh, it's feeling a little strained for me there. How's it feeling for you on this one? I'll go again. Oh, that was okay despite being pretty high. How are you feeling? Still getting air? Let's tough it out for one more. Oh, that's treading the line for me. How's it feel for you? Hopefully you're able to still get a decent amount of air as you're going up higher and higher and higher. Let's give you a true test of that though. Have a little sip of water. I'm going to give you an example of what I want you to do. I'm going to try 5 notes. Let's aim for 5 notes. I'm going to give everybody enough time for 5 notes. If you can't do 5 notes, that's okay. But I'm going to show you a 5-note progression, and then I want you to do a 5-note progression without me interrupting you or any of that stuff. So I'm going to go like so. Big deep breaths in on all of these. I was still feeling lots of nice warm air on my hand during all those 5 notes. Let's see if you can do that. Try and give yourself 5 nice breathy notes, and don't sweat it if the breath goes down a little bit as you go up. It's all about challenging yourself a bit. Ready? Let's go. Should probably be at 2, maybe like 3 by now, maybe like 4 by now, probably about 5 by now. Give everyone a chance to catch up. How's that? Do you feel like you got lots of air on your hand? Did you feel like you were able to still make pretty good sounds? Don't sweat it if you think you were entering your falsetto. Don't sweat it if you think you were losing a bit of air. Don't sweat it if you couldn't get 5 notes. It's okay. It's all about giving yourself a framework to challenge yourself within. Challenge yourself within. If you know you can only get 3 notes, that's okay. That's what you're starting with. Okay, 3 notes is my baseline. I'm going to do the best 3 notes I can do. And then maybe one day, if I'm feeling really good on it, I'll try 4 notes and see. What's the worst that happens? It's not that as good as I'm used to? Oh, boo-hoo. It'll be better next time. It'll always be better next time. Right? Yeah. Okay, so in this paradigm of increasing pitch and keeping the breath while we do so, let's do an exercise that I like to do called the glissando. The glissando is where you're going up and down in one fluid motion. In the case of a breathy glissando, it's doing that breathy but going up and back down again. So we're starting somewhere, going higher, and then coming back down to where we started, like so. This is teaching us a couple things. First, it's teaching us that sustained breath control. We're sustaining this breathy note for a longer period of time. It's also teaching us to sustain it while it's going up in pitch, which is harder, right? We tighten up, we run out of air. All these things can contribute to making us not be able to sustain this note. So we learn to be able to keep that breath moving even as we go up and back down. And it's not just about being able to do these notes at higher and higher pitches. It's about being able to move at will. Like I was showing, I can switch around between different pitchinesses or breathinesses or pitches even if I wish to. I can speak down low or go up really high. I'm going to be using different elements of my voice to achieve this, but it's about that flexibility and maneuverability. So this is teaching maneuverability in the breathier side of things. So I'll give you an example here of a full fluid glissando again, but that might be difficult for people, so we're going to break it down. So I'll go nice fluid arc. How can we break that down to make it simpler? Why? We just did a note progression step by step. That's how we can do it here. But instead of going up 3 or 5 notes, we're just going to go up 1 note and then back down, like so. Start higher, back where you started again. Yeah, that's very elegant to say and totally something a professional voice teacher would use as their model. And I'm putting my hand around for this, but I want you to have your hand up for it so you can feel that air. You can track if you're losing your air as you go up. Why don't you try? Do you feel the air in your hand? You feeling a little lightheaded? Give yourself a bit of water either way. I'll give you another example here. Good stuff. Now I'm wanting to keep it as breathy as possible, both at the start and at the finish, and of course at the top too. It's normal to lose it a bit at the top, but always try and finish nice and breathy. This is giving you a chance to pace yourself, to not use up all your breath, and to control how much breath you release at any point in time. I'll give you another example and then you can go. You can go. Good stuff. Have another sip of water. Let's put it together into a fluid glissando. We're going to be going like this. When we put it all together, instead of 3 separate things, it's all got to be on one breath. So we got to take a really deep breath in for it. So we have to go doing the same thing, but it's all breathing out the whole time. I'll give you another example and then I'll give you a chance to do it on your own. Why don't you try it? Take a couple deep breaths in and out. Have a little water maybe. I'll give you another example. I still felt pretty good air in my hand. Why don't you make sure you have your hand for this one? See how it feels. You feeling lots of air in your hand even as you go up high? You still finishing nice and breathy? At the very end, you still feel the air in your hands? Hope so. Just try your best with it. I'll give you another example and then we'll do one more of these. We're going to go. Hopefully this is making some sense to you. Hopefully it's helping you develop some control in your breath. And hopefully this is something you feel you can implement into your regular practice. I personally find this is a great warm-up exercise especially. Sometimes it requires us to return to it later in a practice session after we've kind of nailed down the breathy principles. But if you're pretty familiar with breathiness, throwing this in near the beginning is a great way to stretch out and develop your ability to stay breathy while going up in pitch and while moving in pitch. We can also go higher, which, hey, we were doing pitch lockstep increases before. Let's do it with the glissando. So the glissando, increasing the pitch in small jumps, looks like this. We're still doing this arcing, but then we would increase it a little bit at a time, the whole thing going up. So it goes, I can feel there I'm losing my breath a bit. It's a little more in the falsetto. It's not as strong. I can call it there. Why don't we try this together because it's a little more difficult. I'll go and then you go. So let's start at the bottom, the normal baseline pitch, easy pitch that you're pretty familiar with working with and that maybe you've been using for all your exercises so far. Just going like so. You go. Hey, you go. There we go. We'll go higher. You can try. One higher. Let's push it to the limit. Do one more. Now I know there I was probably losing my breath at the top, so I wouldn't probably go higher than that today. I won't make you go higher than that today. But hopefully that's giving you a sense of how to challenge your pitch while still maintaining breathiness. And if you can do this, then it becomes easier and easier for you to stay breathy at any range. We train to go higher in pitch, not just because we want to speak higher pitch, but because we want to have somewhere to go. I can go a lot higher than the pitch I've been mainly speaking with this whole time, and that's because I want to be able to go higher pitch if I want to. And I also want to make it easier for myself. If you can do it at a higher pitch, it's going to be way easier to do it at a lower pitch. Athletes and people who do a lot of, they're working out and stuff, they're lifting weights. They're lifting heavier weights than they're ever going to have to move on the field at whatever sport ball they're playing. But they still do that training because it makes them stronger. It makes them better at whatever it is they need to be doing. Similarly, we go higher in pitch because that makes us better at performing at more reasonable pitches, yeah? So don't be afraid to go higher in pitch, even if you don't necessarily want to be a girly girl speaking in a girly girl high-pitched voice. It's good training. It's going to make you stronger. Hopefully all the stuff we covered today is going to make you stronger and give you a sense of what you can be practicing moving forward. I recommend this week you especially work on glissandos, creaky doors, which we would work on last week, and now we want to work on implementing them with that breathiness, going from the creaky yawn. Glissando, creaky yawn, and breathy pitch training, the that sort of thing. Also, don't be afraid to practice your breathing, especially if you're in a place where you can't do regular voice training. And don't be afraid to hold things for longer and longer to give yourself a sense of that controlled breath training, doling out breath in the amounts you want. I think that will be good for a lesson today. Hopefully this all makes sense to everybody. And if you have any questions about this, I think I haven't made space in my lesson timing to give people question and answer period during the lesson because we're just getting started on this. But as people get more and more comfortable with it, I would like to give people space to ask questions during the lesson. So maybe next lesson time, I'm going to give people space to ask questions. So if you're tuning in this time, think about questions you have now and think about questions you will have at the end of this week. Like practice this week think about what you're succeeding at, what you're having difficulty with, and then I'll give you a chance to type out a question. If you're on the Discord, you can type it there. You can type it in the comments here on Twitch. If you watch this on YouTube, you could type a question in YouTube comments too. You can also ask. I want to have a space also for voice questions on my Discord. I haven't figured out the best way to do that, but we will implement that too, to give people a chance to get live feedback on how their voice is sounding. If that sounds interesting to you, you should find a way to join my Discord. Usually the easiest way to do that is to sign up to support me on Patreon, $2 a month. You're helping me make my comics. You're helping me do all the work that I do, and you get access to my Discord, where not only is there the voice training resources that I'm, developing, you can get the feedback, you can get feedback on any of your voice training. I try to answer people and any questions they have on Discord, but we'll be setting up this live channel to do the live voice feedback as well. But also, hey, there's a bunch of stuff on there for, we're just talking about movies, art, tabletop gaming, video games, animal memes, you name it. Tons of stuff on Discord. It's a fun time. I really love my Discord, and I hope you can join us there sometime. I hope you can join me next week for training, and I hope you keep practicing this training. Don't give up, or this week. Well, I'm just so into training. Keep training this week. Don't stop. Don't get discouraged. Even if you don't think you have a lot of time, even if you don't have a whole lot of energy, find some way to squeeze a little bit of training into your day-to-day life. Don't have time to train? You could just do a bit of breath training. Sit there breathing, calm yourself, develop a sense of control over your diaphragmatic breathing. Lots you can be doing. Keep pushing yourself this week, and also don't forget to tip your voice coach. I do this stuff for free, and I want to keep it free, but also I want to be able to put more and more effort into doing it, and that means I have to be prepared, supported, having the resources I need to do that. And if I feel like this is something that has a lot of support behind it, this is something a lot of people are tuning into, it'll be easier and easier for me to develop more resources, more graphics, make more lesson plans, prepare things, and make the lessons overall more coherent and hopefully useful for you all. So feel free to throw me a tip. Feel free to throw me a suggestion. Feel free to give me a follow on any of these things. And don't stop training. That's the most important thing. I'll see you kids on the internet, and I'll see you next week. Thank you so much for joining me for voice training. And, oh yeah,